Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show, right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. What is this show about? Well, in my mind, it's a celebration. It's a celebration of the outdoor lifestyle here in the great state of Michigan. A celebration of hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping and wildlife issues and conservation issues and even some wild game cooking. I don't talk about hiking or biking or sailing or bird watching, not because those aren't great and valid and viable outdoor activities. I think anything that gets you outdoors is a wonderful activity. Anything that gets you out of the house, off the couch, away from the electronic screens, it's all good. But I don't know of anybody who is seriously trying to take away bird watching and hiking and biking and boating and sailing and all that kind of stuff. No. But what I call the consumptive outdoor lifestyle, hunting and fishing and trapping, where sometimes we harvest critters. Now, every trip doesn't have to end in a harvest. Every fishing trip or every hunting trip doesn't have to end in a harvest, but oftentimes they do. So it's a consumptive use of the resource. Now, that resource is renewable. It's not like if you shoot a rabbit that you've taken, say you go out and you shoot 5 rabbits. Well, it's not going to take long for those 5 rabbits to be replenished. Mother Nature will take care of that if the habitat is there to support it. But because it is a consumptive activity, and because it sometimes involves the use of guns or other tools, some people are not a real fan of our way of life, or the way of life, the outdoor lifestyle. We see it all the time. And, you know, everything from gun control to anti-hunters to, I don't know. But I grew up in this lifestyle. I grew up in a hunting and fishing, trapping and shooting family. My granddad did it. I didn't know my great-granddad. I knew my granddad very well. And he was, man, was he smart. Not book smart, not educated smart, but just smart in life. You know, he would go out on the porch in the morning. He wouldn't look at a weather forecast. He'd go out on the porch in the morning, and he'd look at the sky, he'd feel the temperature, he'd feel the humidity, he'd feel the wind, he'd feel the direction, and he knew what the weather was going to do. But as a farmer, he needed to know those things. My dad was much the same way. Now, I would suspect that my dad would say, and we never really had this conversation. I wish I would have. I bet my dad would say that he was not as smart or knowledgeable or as in tune with the outdoors or as good of a hunter or angler as his dad, my grandpa, was. But I will tell you this, I know I am not nearly the outdoorsman that my dad was, and certainly my grandpa. And when I want to know what the weather's going to be like, I'm more likely to take my phone out of my pocket and look at a screen than I am walk outside and feel the conditions and make an educated guess. So because our way of life has its detractors and its critics, and because I see firsthand in my own life that we as a society are becoming less involved, less intimately involved, less personal knowledge of the outdoors and Mother Nature than previous generations. It bothers me. I'm concerned about it. I would hate to think that this lifestyle wouldn't be here in a few generations. Now, I realize in many Michigan families that's not a concern, right? Especially you get to the UP, the northern part of the state. I mean, we are firmly ensconced and in love with this outdoor passion, pursuit. It's not a hobby, it's a way of life. But there are enough people in the southern part of the state where the population is that don't have the same background and passion that we do, and they don't have the same insight and knowledge that we do, that when hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping issues come up, they can be easily swayed by the non-hunters, the anti-hunters, the anti-fur people, the all that whole crowd. And I'm not disparaging those people because they don't know. They're ignorant, but I don't mean that in a bad sense. They just, many of them didn't grow up hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping, so they don't have that frame of reference. Their parents didn't teach them that, so they don't know. So I think it's real important these days that we continue to get the word out. We continue to show ourselves in a positive light. We continue to portray ourselves as stewards of the resource as we are, that we are, to the non-hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping public, not the antis, right? They're never going to get it. If you look at the population of Michigan, probably the population of this country, on one end of the spectrum, you have the hardcore antis. They're anti-fur, they're anti-hunting, they're anti-shooting, they're anti-trapping, they're anti-fishing, they're anti-agriculture. They want to live in this little weird utopian, what they think is utopian world. So what is that? Maybe 10% of the population, hopefully less. They're on one end of the spectrum. We, as hardcore hunters and anglers and shooters and trappers, are on the other end of the spectrum. Call us 10%. I hope it's more than that, but call us 10%. So then you've got the 80% of people in the middle who are non-participants. They're not anti, they just don't know. And those are the people that we have to reach. Those are the people that we have to get involved. Those are the people that we got to take fishing with us, take hunting with us, take out to the gun range with us. Or at the very minimum, those are the people that we want to portray ourselves as good stewards of the resource to. And how do we do that? Well, I mean, listen, I am convinced that the vast majority of hunters and anglers and shooters and trappers are good, law-abiding, moral, ethical, decent people. But we have to portray ourselves that way. So when it comes to social media, think about how you're holding a critter, a fish, and I don't want to say sterilize or make your pictures palatable to everybody, but I'm just saying keep such things in mind, right? Because, well, Avery, I mean, the only people who follow me on Facebook are my friends, and they're hunters and anglers. Not so. Not true. People who don't follow you can see your posts. I get this all the time. I'm like, well, if you don't like this, well, why are you following me? I'm not following you. But one of my friends is, and so it showed up on their feed. So just keep that type of thing in mind, right? That is not the direction that I thought this opening segment was going to go this week. So what else is going on? Hey, the days are getting longer, much longer. Have you noticed that? The days are getting longer. And I haven't seen one yet. But as I was doing my Behind the Mic segment here in the studio, somebody came on and said in Coldwater they saw their first dead skunk in the middle of the road. That is a sign that springtime cannot be far away. Ice fishing. I don't know what the ice is like in your part of the state, but across much of the state, it has not been much of an ice fishing season. Shed hunting. People are out there shed hunting. River fishing has been pretty good for both walleye, steelhead. Turkey hunting's coming up. I'm getting real excited about that. Real excited. And, of course, my springtime bear hunt up in Ontario. Coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show, John Durtka, the guy who has really, I think, pioneered underwater spearfishing here in Michigan, talks about their harvest rate. They have solid numbers now as to how many fish his group has harvested. I want to talk with him about that because they've gotten a lot of heat. Again, a lot of it on social media saying you guys are going to decimate the resource. It isn't fair what you're doing. Well, we're going to talk to John about that. Then Scott Hamlin of the Bohning Company, Michigan-based Bohning, talking about the history of that company, also with some advice on building your arrows for this time of year. Ali Shakoor in hour number 2, is it biologically sound to keep spawn-filled fish this time of year? Amy Trotter from MUCC, I'm sure she wants to talk about the consent decree. I'm going to use the word debacle. And also the governor's recent governor's State of the State address. And then in hour number 3, the Whitetail Whisperer, John Eberhart, on postseason whitetail scouting and more. And, of course, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner. A good show this week, a busy show. I'm glad you're with us. I hope you can stick around for all 3 hours of this week's Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Battle Creek on WBCK 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Traverse City on WTCM 580 AM and north of the bridge in Marquette on WDMJ 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Rapid River Knives. You know, I have a Rapid River knife in my pocket right now, as I always do. I think there's no doubt in my mind, this is the finest knife I've ever carried. And I've carried a pocket knife my entire life. These things are handmade by craftsmen in the UP from top quality materials, and they have a lifetime guarantee. How cool is that? Go to their website, rapidriverknifeworks.us, to get a feel for the different types of knives they offer, folding knives, pocket knives like I'm carrying, skinning knives, gutting knives, fillet knives, kitchen knives, axes, hatchets, you name it. If it's got a blade, Rapid River can make it for you, and they make it right there in the shop just east of Rapid River. Check out their showroom on US 2 just east of town, or go to the website rapidriverknifeworks.us. I love to fish. I love to fish walleye. I love to troll walleye on Saginaw Bay. I love to troll walleye on my angler quest on Saginaw Bay. The concept of getting into the water with those fish and chasing them and spearing them is something that I know I'll never do. But I'm fascinated by it, and I have so much respect for the people who do it, especially John Durtka. John is the guy who, in my opinion, single-handedly pushed the concept of allowing underwater spearfishing through the DNR and the NRC, and it became law. And I think John is the guy to credit with that. And he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line to kind of follow up on this whole concept and process. John, welcome back. How are you?
Excellent, Mike. Thank you for having me back on. It's a great time to be with you.
Always a pleasure. And I enjoyed our conversation that we had recently on the Polar Craft podcast, where you were down in Florida, you were chasing saltwater fish, and you were chasing iguanas with blowguns. How cool is that?
One of the funner things I've ever done, I'll have to say that. Been unique for sure.
How was the spearfishing down there compared to Michigan?
The abundance and the variety of fish is uncomparable. That's the best way to say it.
Bigger fish, stronger fish? I mean, the water's warmer, obviously.
Oh, yeah, there's varieties of groupers and snappers and barracudas and wahoos and hogfish and don't forget the sharks, too.
Well, I mean, me being a Michigan guy who doesn't dive, I would be always looking over my shoulder and afraid of sharks. Should that be a concern?
You need to be mindful of their presence, but most of the time they have no interest in you, simply just the fish that you are attempting to spear.
Well, that's one good thing about spearfishing up here. We don't have sharks to worry about. What fish can you legally target here in Michigan, John?
You can spearfish all of the rough fish that you can with, bow fishing equipment, so carp, drum, gar, suckers, catfish. And now with the new Fisheries Order 21922, you can legally spear walleye, lake trout, and northern pike in certain portions of Lake Michigan and Lake Huron.
You got some grief over this initially, pushing this through and then posting your adventures online. Not all of the comments you got were positive.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of people, they don't think it's sporting or it doesn't take any skill or anything like that. And I think through those videos and through talking with you and you sharing my videos, we're starting to gain a lot of traction that this is a well-respected and very difficult method of taking game fish.
Well, and one of the concerns was that you guys would decimate the fish population. After seeing your videos, I suspect that's not going to happen because it's a lot of work for a limited number of fish. But you've now got some hard numbers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why if you hear me talking about the reporting, and that data is collected, and finally got some preliminary numbers. I have to premise that. These are preliminary numbers. But, I mean, as you can see, when you go out there, we're restricted by the same harvest and size limits as everybody else. So there's, if you think that we're going to break those rules or laws or whatever, we are going to be subject to the same criminal offenses as any other angler would be when they do that.
So, but these numbers come from not your group, but from the DNR, right?
Correct. The harvest and bag limits, just like you said, when you go on the regulations, you look at them and they say 5 fish a day in these portions of Lake Huron and Lake Michigan, or it's 8 in the bay and so on and so forth. That's the same numbers we have to follow.
No, but I mean the harvest numbers, the number of fish taken. These are numbers that the DNR has put out, right?
Yes, correct. Yes, sir. And
so what did you guys come up with? What do you see?
So as of April 1st through August 30th of 2022, there were 301 walleye harvested, 11 northern pike, and 1 lake trout. That's the totals right there of the new game fish.
Give me those numbers again, John.
301 walleye, 11 pike, and 1 lake trout.
Wow.
And that comes from 418 trips by 147 unique underwater spearfishing anglers.
418 trips by 187 unique anglers?
147.
147.
So if you break it down, you would say that's about 3 trips a person.
Well, I'm not the world's best walleye fisherman, but I think my catch rate's a lot higher than what you guys are getting from spearing.
Yeah, those are rookie numbers.
So
but I tell you what, it's a good time, and it's a good way to get a meal for yourself and your family.
I also heard too, and maybe I heard this from you, and gosh, I hope I'm not talking out of school, but I think there's some movement to try to get the dark house guys, the guys who are spearing through the ice, to have access to different species too.
Absolutely, why not?
Well,
we have these shrinking winners, and their success rates aren't much better than ours. And why not get them out there, allow them to get some walleye in the bay or Lake Huron, Lake Michigan.
Well, you talk about these shrinking winters. Now, when will you be able to start spearfishing here in Michigan?
Depending on your tolerance for cold water, I usually start right around or after Memorial Day. Late May, early June is my best time to go. The water's in the mid to upper 50s. The fish are starting to come back into the shallower waters after they've returned from their spawning adventures. and you can start getting on them pretty good in early June.
Water temp in the 50s. I hope you're wearing a dry suit.
No dry suits, but a 5mm wetsuit will keep you in the water for a good 3-4 hours.
Oh, will it really?
Okay. If you're working hard.
Well, and
what's that?
I'm surprised you can stay down there. Spend that much time in the water with water temps like that.
Yeah, that's where having a good open cell, thick wetsuit will keep you in. And remember, we're kicking and we're diving. We're getting our blood pumping, so that's going to be part of it. You can't just float around in the water and shoot these fish. You have to move and get down on their level and hide behind rocks and kind of follow them around and try and coax them in. It's an effort. And
you can't wear a tank.
No artificial breathing devices whatsoever.
So you're holding your breath.
Got to hold it. Free dive is the only way.
So
you have to be fully submerged to harvest these fish. No floating on the surface.
Oh, so you couldn't just go along with a snorkel and spear them from above.
Nope. Yeah, you see those fish, and you have to get down underneath the water, fully submerged.
Right down in their environment.
Pretty fun.
So,
and that's the best part about it, because if you can get right down on their level, you can look at them. If you get a nice school in front of you, you can get them curious. You can look at each individual fish, get to watch them and observe them, and then if you feel like taking a fish out of that school, you can pick the one you want and take them.
I've seen video of you almost calling them in, like you're moving your fingers in front of you, like, come here, fish, come here, fish. What is that all about?
That's exactly what I'm doing. Just trying to get their curiosity, get them excited, get them curious to come in and check out what I got. If you haven't seen, on my spear gun, I put reflective, like holographic minnow cutouts, and I'll angle my gun at them sometimes to try and flash them and get them curious to, just like a spinner bait or a meth spinner or something to gain that curiosity. Be like, ooh, there could be some food, and by the time they come in, I can get a good look at them and decide if I want to take that fish.
Well, and people can see these videos on your Instagram feed and your YouTube channel, Purely MI Spearfishing, right, John?
Absolutely. I just uploaded a new video of some walleye spearing on Saginaw Bay just last week.
Purely MI Spearfishing on Instagram and YouTube. How does the water temp and the depth affect how deep you can go, or how long you can stay down, I should say? Yeah,
the water depth is going to have a big role in your breath hold, because the harder you got to work to get to the depth, the more oxygen you burn, the less time you're going to have on the bottom. And then the colder the water, you are burning oxygen to maintain your body temperature, and that's going to, affect your ability to dive. And those are all factors that contribute to your success rate.
So you guys are athletes, though. You're training for this.
Yeah, I do anyways. I think that's one of the reasons I'm a little bit more successful than most people is I run to keep my lungs in tip-top shape, and I swim and expose myself to the elements as much as possible to make sure when my time comes to get in the water with my spear gun that I'm as well prepared as I can be.
Well, John, I told you before, I have much respect for what you were able to accomplish, and the fact that you're promoting this to the point where it's, people are seeing this online. Even guys like me, even though we're never going to do it, it's fun to know that it's out there. It's fun to watch you guys do that, and just to spread the word, because it's not I don't see it as an old guy sport. But if there are young people listening to this show and say, hey, you know what, I want to give that a try. Well, John is your guy to emulate and try to imitate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have people from, high school freshmen and all the way up to people in their mid-50s who, scuba dive their whole life, and now they're like, well, I never even thought of this as a possibility, and I would love to try it. So I always tell everybody, hit me up if you want to go out. I'll do my best to get you out, and if I can't get you out with me, I'll at least maybe send you to some spots where you might be able to have some success.
I appreciate that, John. Thanks for sharing those numbers. Keep up the good work. John Durtka, Purely MI Spearfishing on Instagram and YouTube. Purely MI Spearfishing on Instagram and YouTube. We'll take a break. When we come back, I think we've got Scott Hamlin of the Bohning Company join me. If not, we'll find somebody else to talk with. And then coming up in our second hour, Ali Shakoor, fisheries biologist, tournament fisherman, all-around good guy, and Amy Trotter of MUCC coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Tawas on WIOS, 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. In fact, you can hear us twice each weekend on WIOS. You can hear us in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in the Sioux on News Talk 1400 WKNW. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Michigan-based VersaSkins. Just change your skin for the season you're in. Paul Perrone, VersaSkins owner, has come up with a great concept. Why buy multiple sets of hunting clothes when you can buy one good quality set and snap on and zip on a different outer layer with a different camo pattern? Paul Perrone will be at our Trinity Monitor Wild Game Dinner Saturday, March 4th, where he's actually giving away a set of VersaSkins clothes. But if you're not going to be able to join us there, go to his website, versaskins.com. That's versaskins.com, and you will see what I mean. I love working with Michigan-based family-owned companies. Paul Perrone and VersaSkins, a fairly new company. They've been around for a few years, but they certainly don't have the history and track record of Bohning Archery. Bohning, now more than 3/4 of a century, has been in the archery industry. They continue to innovate, come up with new products, new designs, new manufacturing processes for target archers and bow hunters. Scott Hamlin is with Bohning, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Scott, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Good morning, Mike. I'm well.
So, well, a couple of things. Did you guys go to the ATA show?
You did?
How was that for you this year?
Yeah, it was great. So the last couple ATA shows have been very productive in that I think that the buyers were there to talk and to buy. Where in the past there were just a lot of people, not all of them interested in talking about buying. So it's still a very viable and valuable event, in my opinion, and Bohning is a big part of it.
How would you characterize the state of the archery industry today? You guys have been in it forever. What do you see?
Well, I think archery obviously is still very strong, and in fact, the work of the archery in the schools program like NOSP and then S3DA are ensuring even a longer, brighter future. So many young kids are being exposed to archery in these programs that I just see it really benefiting archery. In addition to that, I think the introduction of crossbow use in so many states is bringing many hunters who were only formerly rifle firearm hunters into the archery season, which is just great for everyone involved.
You talk about those kids' archery programs in the schools. I've never seen a kid pick up a bow and fling an arrow at a target that they didn't turn around and give you a big smile. There's something about it that is just, these kids they relate to it and they love it.
Yeah, I think I just saw some statistics the other day, concerning NOSP, which is, NOSP is unique in that it's very structured, and the equipment that can be used is very definite, meaning the archers don't have choice, and so everyone's using the same stuff, and they're teaching fundamentals. And then you go to S3DA where that young archer then can use their own equipment. They've gotten to a hunting age maybe, and they have their own bow, and in that environment, still structured and very teacher-oriented, it gives them a little bit more freedom in the equipment they can use. But again, it's all good for the industry. And then I think the final piece of it, really, to me, is when we get them out in the woods. We get them out in the woods and they fall in love with the woods, whether that's hunting or not. And again, I have 4 boys. 2 of them are split, 2 hunt and 2 don't, but they all love the outdoors. Just get them in the outdoors, and I think that hooks them in addition to, the technical skills of whatever it is they're using to hunt.
Well, you folks at Bohning, I mean, you cater to both groups, right? The target archers and the hunters.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have, obviously the blazer vane, #1 hunting vane in the world. used all across the globe. And then we have our own target line, right? Like the inside archery is typically large diameter arrows because they're trying to cut a line on a target. So the larger the diameter arrow they use, the more accurate they appear. And on those arrows, our Zen vein, which is a long, lower profile vein, is the primary vein, and very well accepted in Europe and as well as here in the U.S.
When you guys came out with that blazer, I think it revolutionized things because you'd look at that and go, how can that little tiny low-profile vein steer an arrow? But it was just some kind of magic that makes it all happen because they work very well.
Right, yeah, it's certainly magic above my head, right, and understanding. When you ask me, I tell you they work, and they do, right? And millions of hunters every year are succeeding whatever it is that they've been chasing because of the blazer vein. And all of our testing, which we do a ton of here at Bohning, something really that sets us apart from everybody else is that, when you start to extend the range of where you're going, how far you're shooting, and, add wind to it, nothing performs like a blazer vein. It's just a fact of matter. None of our other veins, no other competitive vein will, still group in a kill shot fashion when you start to reach out 60, 75, 85 yards, especially in a wind.
We're talking with Scott Hamlin of Bohning Archery, the website bohning.com. That's Bohning, bohning.com. They've been around the archery industry. Well, they were there since the beginning, honestly. We've got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, I want to talk more with Scott. I think we want to talk a little about building arrows, too, because it's a great activity to do this time of year to get ready for the upcoming hunting seasons. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Caro on two stations, WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in Ludington on News 97.98, 98.7 WLDN, and you can hear us north of the bridge in Iron Mountain on WMIQ 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Killer Food Plots, Michigan-based Killer Food Plots, the name you want to keep in mind as we get closer to the springtime food plot planting season. Great products, great people, very knowledgeable, experts in their field, pun intended. And we will be talking with Rich Krazan as the food plot season develops. He's our expert now here on the show. You can check out their website, killerfoodplots.com. That's killerfoodplots.com. While you are online, please head over to my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and then jump on over to Bohning.com, Bohning.com, the website of Michigan-based Bohning Archery. Scott Hamlin is with Bohning. Scott is a hardcore archer and a good promoter for the company. Scott, let's talk for a few minutes, though, about the concept, the process of building your own arrows. What a great activity for this time of year.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's fun. It's relatively easy to do. You can be as creative as you'd like to be, especially with the Bohning offerings of wraps and veins. So many combinations, over 1 million total. But, we've tried to, in the last 3 years, to simplify fletching as the start of arrow building, right? And we have created 3 jigs, which make it very easy. One's called a cauldron, and it allows you to fletch all 3 at once. 3 veins onto the arrow. And then we have the multi-fletcher and the frontier, which are single vein at a time, but allow you to 4 fletch as well as 3 fletch, and do cross bolts as well.
Do they all allow helical and offset veins?
Yeah, the beauty of these 3 units is they all use the same insert set. So what we've done is, in the past, fletching was done with a magnetic clamp, if you will.
Oh, yeah.
And, those clamps applied the the angle, but you had to be, pretty good with them, pretty skilled because of the way they employed. Well, we've developed an insert system which allows you to apply a 1 degree right or a 3 degree right just by simply snapping an insert into a holder, placing your vein in it, and when you then attach that, it applies the correct fletching angle. Just makes it so easy, so repeatable, that it's really revolutionized fletching.
Well, how do we know whether we want a right hand or left hand, and how many degrees to offset those veins?
Right. So a couple things. One, strings are built to be right or left, and simply test it without veins on an arrow. Put a black mark, shoot a 5-foot target, and see which way that arrow is rotating. If that line has gone to the right, then you fletch to the right. If it's gone to the left, you fletch to the left. And that's just a fact of how your string was actually made, how it was twisted.
That's the first time, Scott. That is the first time I've ever had anybody tell me that. Explain that to me again.
Yeah, so when your string is made, it's kind of like fishing line, right? When you spool a reel, if you've got that thing upside down, it wants to unwind on you, right? There's a memory to the line. So when a bowstring is made, it's twisted either to the right as it's being made or to the left. And the only way to determine how that was done is to take an arrow without veins, put a black, permanent mark on the top of it, and shoot it at a, target from 5 feet. And you'll see which way that arrow rotates, right? Either to the right or the left.
Yeah.
And that will tell you. And then as far as the helical, so again, above my head kind of information, but I understand this much, that when we aim something, we have a straight line that we're aiming it at. And anything that rotates, the more it rotates, the closer it stays to that line. So a 3 degree helps something spin faster as it comes out of the bow.
Do you lose speed and therefore performance if you put too much of an angle on it?
Sure. Yeah, you certainly can. And that obviously is relative, really, to how far you're shooting. Here in Michigan, most of our shots are.
So with your wraps that allow you to customize, and a wrap is a vinyl wrap, a vinyl sheet that wraps around the nock end of an arrow, so you can make it more visible and make it more customizable. They're so easy to use and so cool. Does anybody even crest anymore? Does anybody even use paint, Scott?
Yeah, absolutely. There still is. In fact, down in the thumb area, one of our great customers, the daughter still has her fletching room and still does custom arrows. Big demand for that, right? People want custom stuff, but wraps certainly are a majority of the customization, and they're so easy to use. They come in multiple sizes depending on your arrow size, right? And you're basically just peeling off the adhesive sticker, laying it on like a mouse pad, and rolling your arrow over it. It's very easy to apply. And some of the custom designs that people come up with, again, we have so many different wraps and so many different veins that I see them all the time. I just returned from Vegas, and some of the combinations are so incredible.
Scott, I love talking with you about boning and about archery. Your history with archery is very long, and of course, Bohning Archery, one of the great Michigan companies. Appreciate your time. I'll send people to the website, bohning.com. That's bohning.com, Bohning.com. I will have boning products on my rigs as I hit the Turkey Woods this spring here in Michigan, and as I head back to Ontario for a springtime bear hunt. Boning products will be with me, bohning.com, Bohning.com. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, we'll talk fishing with Ali Shakoor, and then Amy Trotter of MUCC will join us as well.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. I say that to kind of set this program apart from all of the podcasts that are out there. I love podcasting, right? But I think radio is unique in that it's been around for a long time, and it's still strong. It's still strong. And I would say the best way to listen to Outdoor Magazine Radio, if you can, is on your local AM or FM station. If for nothing more than the fact that the broadcast stations get the content of the show before I upload the podcast. But isn't it nice to know that there is a podcast version of the radio show? If your local station doesn't carry all 3 hours of the program, or if you live in some part of our state not covered by the broadcast signal, you can listen to the podcast. It's on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. It's on my Facebook page, and it's on just about everywhere else that you can listen to a podcast, including Audible, Amazon Music, Stitcher, Deezer, SoundCloud, Spotify. I even put it up on YouTube. I know there's no video to go with it. It's just a podcast. But every week, people go to my YouTube channel to watch/listen to the podcast. I do like podcasting, though. Each month, I produce podcasts for some of my partner companies, including Offshore Tackle, Angler Quest Boats. In fact, when we're done today in the studio, we're going to record this month's Angler Quest podcast, Primal Outdoors, and Polar Craft Boats as well. Regardless, though, if you're listening to the broadcast version or the podcast version of the show, I thank you. The fact that you're hearing my voice right now means a lot to me. I've been doing this a long time. I'm not ready to retire yet, and your support allows me to continue down this journey and this venture, and I thank you so very, very much. I always say one of the things I like most about what I do is the fact that I get a chance to talk to so many interesting people who are absolute experts in their field. I respect that. I respect the passion and the dedication it takes to become an expert in any field. And if it's a hunting or fishing related field, all the better. Ali Shakoor is one of those people. He's a tournament angler, a fisheries biologist, and an educator in the world of fishing, and he's somebody I always look forward to talking with here on the show, and he's on the Outdoor Magazine phone line right now. Ali, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well, my friend. Thank you again for having me. And I just want to put it out there that I agree, #1 outdoor radio show in the state of Michigan. And I do catch you on the radio, 1320 a.m. out of Lansing. I love listening on the radio still. Kind of came up that way. So always a pleasure to be on the show.
Oh, Ali, I appreciate you saying that. And I saw you the other day on social media. I think I found you on YouTube. You were doing a video with a couple of kids about teaching them the biology of walleye. That was so cool. What was that about?
That was pretty good. So I was contacted by a program they call Into the Outdoors. They're out of Madison, Wisconsin, and they do a lot of content for kids. It airs on PBS, and it's shown in, I don't know how many classrooms around the country, literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions of kids. They contacted me. John Gilman actually took them out for a day of fishing, and then we shot a day on the shore, just kind of talking about what goes into the fishery and the biology of walleye and everything. And it was awesome. A couple of great kid actors. It was one heck of an experience for me.
Why take time out of your busy schedule? And I know it's packed. Why take your valuable time to get involved in a project that teaches kids about fishing? What is there about that effort that has your dedication?
Well, they're the future of the sport, right? And not just the sport, they're the future, period. And I was fortunate enough to have older adults in my life who loved and respected the outdoors, who passed on what they know to me. Unfortunately, there's a lot of kids out there that don't have that at home. So the more information we can get out there, whether it's TV, radio, podcast, because everyone has a cell phone, everyone has access to information. We can keep the sport alive and keep the way of life that we love alive. So it's really important to me, and I do as much outreach as I absolutely can.
I do feel like we as hunters and anglers these days have more information than ever.
We do. We live in the age of information. I kind of wish people would utilize it a little bit more. But we do. There can be some good and some bad that comes out of that, but I choose to concentrate on the positives again, try to make a positive impact on the things that I really love and am passionate about.
What do you mean by you wish people would take more advantage of the info that's out there?
You see, and we've had different conversations about, keeping big fish. You and I have talked about different things in our mini radio interviews. And a lot of times people will hear something, and if it fits their beliefs or something, then they'll kind of run with it as opposed to actually looking it up. I mean, there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of different opinions. There's a lot of evidence-based research that you can take a look at to help you kind of formulate a better opinion, because the more you know about the outdoors or about anything, the more that you can hold people accountable that are responsible for taking care of those resources.
What are some of the projects you're working on right now? I've seen some very cool posts from you that, not being a scientist or a biologist, I can only guess what they are. Help me out, Ali.
I have a really cool amphibian project going on right now. I'm actually I have a couple of hundred green frog tadpoles, doing some work exposing them to microcystis from the Lake Erie harmful algal blooms, and also microplastics, which are becoming a problem in the Great Lakes. So that's kicking off. Just waiting on some IACUC approvals. Just finished doing some water changes with my amphibians. The one I'm really the most excited about is we're doing some hydroacoustic work on Lake Erie. So just got another year of funding. So we're using basically an underwater type airplane. It's fitted with these 4 very large transducers, just like transducers on your boat, 400, 200, 110, 70 kilohertz. And we're mapping subsurface concentrations of bloom, basically. And then we're also utilizing that to map fish populations within the bloom. Along with that, we have a whole suite of data we're collecting, toxicity, pH, all this stuff. But then we're collecting actually acoustic telemetry, how the fish are actually moving in Western Basin Lake Erie in relation to the bloom. So it's going to tell us a lot about how the fish are relating to the bloom, if it's causing their distribution to change in Western Basin Lake Erie and Central Basin Lake Erie. But then we're going to be doing some toxicity stuff also to see where the toxins from the blooms are ending up in the fish.
Has this algae bloom always been around Lake Erie, or is this something new?
It has. It's always been around. It's been there. It's not just Lake Erie. It happens in your neighborhood farm pond. It happens in Lake Taihu, China, Lake Titicaca, Nicaragua. It happens the world over. It's just that, recently with, especially in Lake Erie, surface temperatures are kind of climbing a little bit, and there's some issues with phosphorus and fertilizers and whatnot. Some chemical reactions with some of the invasive species like zebra mussels and quagga mussels that are kind of causing these blooms to become more severe. So most of the research is concentrated on the human health dimensions and property values and everything, but people are really starting to look at how it's affecting the environment, because that's important to us as outdoors people, right?
Well, absolutely. You mentioned microplastics. I get the concept of, bottles and the holders that hold 6-packs together. I can see why they're a danger to critters and fish when they're floating around out there. What's the concept of microplastic? What is that? So
microplastic, that pop bottle that you see floating around, eventually it's going to be pulverized into pieces as small as a nanometer, 5 nanometers, extremely small. And this plastic is showing up everywhere. There's a study the other day, they found microplastics in the uterus of a pregnant woman the other day, embedded in the uterus. It's showing up everywhere. It's showing up. I saw a paper. It was showing up in king salmon in Lake Michigan. So it's working its way through the system. I've seen papers where it's working its way up the food web. So they fed zebra mussels microplastics and put gammarus, which is a small organism that fish feed on, in the tanks, and the gammarus then ate the pseudofeces and ingested the microplastics, and then the fish ate the gammarus, and the microplastics ended up in the fish. So it works its way up the food chain eventually to humans. And so there's so much plastic out there that it's everywhere. It's becoming ubiquitous, to use a big word. So it's important that we start to take a look at where this stuff is ending up, as it passes through the environment.
Real quick before the break, does it break down the plastic because of sunlight, or is it wave action on sandy beaches and the physical breaking it down?
It's a little bit of both. There's some breakdown as a result of UV, but it's the physical pounding and just, water is a universal solvent, right? So over time, eventually, it becomes pulverized and smaller and smaller and smaller until it can work its way up the food web.
Gotcha. We're talking with Ali Shakoor, fisheries biologist, tournament angler, and all-around good guy. You can learn more about him online. Ali Shakoor Fishing on Facebook and Instagram. Ali Shakoor Fishing, again, on Facebook and Instagram. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, well, Ollie's got some more time for me, but I got to let him go here so he can get to class. But I got to pick his brain about a topic that he did bring up, especially this time of year, talking about keeping big fish. The Detroit River is going to be on fire here before too long, and you're going to see pictures of people holding up these big fish, and some people are going to complain about it. Is it a biological problem or not? And we'll see what else is on Ollie's brain after the break right here at Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Alpena on WZTK 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Holland on WHTC. That's AM and FM, 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. And you can hear us, let's go north of the bridge. Let's go to Escanaba, WCHT, 600 AM, 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Suspension Max. When I wanted to lift my Garber Chevy ZR2 Silverado, there's one place I went to, Suspension Max. And Max is MAXX. Today's trucks are beautiful, but they come out of the factory nose down. If you want to lift your truck, if you want to level them out, I've done this for the last 4 or 5 trucks now. Go see Larry and the folks at Suspension Max. When they did that to my truck, number one, it gave it it just looks nicer, but it also lifted the front end, gave me more room for 35-inch tires. I've had them raise trucks. I've had them level trucks. They do a great job. The website, suspensionmax.com, suspensionmax.com. While you are online, check out Ali Shakoor Fishing. You can find him on Facebook and Instagram. Ali Shakoor Fishing on Facebook and Instagram. Ali, have you had a chance to be out on the water or the ice the last few weeks?
A little bit. I've messed around on some inland waters. I had some buddies that were out on Saginaw Bay the other night when that ice broke. And unfortunately, we're stuck on that flow, and that's something that I'm extremely leery of.
Yeah,
my family needs me.
Yeah.
So.
I struggle with that because I spend all summer out there in the bay, and I love that bay, and I love the water, and I'm not much of an ice fisherman, but I think if I was going to be an ice fisherman, it would tend to be an inland lake, because if you didn't grow up on the ice of Saginaw Bay and know that water and the ice from the time you were a kid, it can be a little squirrely.
You can get into some big trouble, and I fished the bay. I grew up fishing the bay with my father. I just, for me, and I've ice fished it, I still feel like I don't have the knowledge to just take off. There's some guys up there I'll fish with that really know it. But in the kind of winter that we've had with the cold and warm, and the ice hasn't really set up to my liking, I'm going to stay off and stay inland and chase bluegills and crappie. Well,
let me ask you a stupid question. Does wintertime weather affect springtime fishing in any way?
Yeah, of course it does. When you don't have that ice cover, water temperatures are going to be different than they normally are. You're going to have more wind action. Of course, that ice forms a cap, right? So the water is not subject to wind mixing. Not that there's a temperature thing going on, but there's still some stuff that happens when the wind blows across. Better light penetration without that ice cover, so things can start to grow a little bit earlier than they normally would. So there is definitely big differences in what happens in the springtime versus when you have ice versus not having ice.
I want to follow up on something you and I always talk about this time of year, and it's the concept of, because, Detroit River walleye action is going to be heating up here pretty soon. Mm-hmm. The concept of keeping big spawn-filled female fish in the spring. Some waters you can do it, and others you probably shouldn't, right?
For sure. There's some places that I've gone around the country that there's no way in heck I would keep a big spawn-filled female. Here, we are extremely fortunate in location and time, because there's been times where our population's been low. I remember in the late 90s where Lake Erie was shut down to springtime fishing. You have to drive over the border to Ohio in the springtime. So this is a boom time for us, but things do change. But right now the populations are so high. They're saying 120, upwards of 120 million fish recruited to the fisheries age 2 and up, 15 inches. So we're not at we're not limited by numbers of fish. We're also not egg limited. Keeping that big female is not going to right now is not going to impact the fishery that much. And you see those arguments, but then people will keep that same fish in June. So if you keep her in June or you keep her in July, you're still removing her from the gene pool, from the spawning stock. So, keeping those large fish is not going to have an impact on the fishery.
We really do have a world-class walleye fishery here in our state, don't we?
It's absolutely incredible. Something I mentioned, shot a couple shows, and I said it on those also. Like, for me, this is not scientific at all. I prefer to keep walleye under 22 inches. That's just me. I just do not like to mess with larger fish anymore. And there's some people who do not like to fish with me on the Detroit River because I'll be out there all day trying to catch a limit of fish under 22 inches. I mean, how incredible is that? There are some fisheries around the country where the 22-inch fish, I mean, you may get 1 or 2, but you're not going to get a limit. And we have to fish sometimes all day to get a limit of fish under 22 inches. It's absolutely incredible, and we are incredibly blessed to have this fishery.
How has your scientific and biological background impacted your recreational or your tournament fishing?
It's impacted it a lot. I've had some success because of it. But I've also had some things where I should have looked outside the box, so it's kind of a two-way street. It's like I mentioned earlier we have a lot of information, but sometimes that information can hinder you a little bit. And I've had it happen both ways, but I would much rather be in this position and have the knowledge that's been passed on to me by other great scientists, so that it can inform my fishing and how I go about in the outdoors. But it does make a huge difference, I really do believe. Was there one particular find or study or survey or something that you were involved in that like a light bulb went off and you went, oh man, now this all makes sense? Not really, and it's funny the way things come together. I've been talking to some folks about currents and everything one day, and structure on Lake Erie. And I was in my boat and I was transferring some waypoints, and I always drop a waypoint for every fish. Got that from Lance Valentine years and years ago. And I was transferring waypoints, and I had another map up on my phone. I went up on the GPS, and I start looking at the structures, and then I grab my laptop and I pull up the NOAA site, and I start looking at how the currents change monthly, basically, over the course of a year. And what I start seeing in my waypoints, the structure started corresponding to some of the gross movements of current on Lake Erie. And for me, like that, at that moment, there's like light bulbs just started going off all over the place. And it was a really cool moment how the stuff that I picked up from so many places over the years, from fishermen and from science and everything, and at that moment, it all came together. It was really cool moment. What
you're talking about, though, this process of accumulating knowledge and experience, we don't have to be a biologist to let that play into our fishing, do we?
Heck no. Look, if a guy comes off the water and I struggle, even if I didn't struggle, and he's got a great catch and he's willing to talk, I will pick his brain until he's like, hey, man, I got to go. I got to get home. And that's just, I'll learn from anyone, anywhere. Because somebody's going to say something and you may not pick it up then. Sometime down the line, it may be years, you're going to see something and you're going to go, oh, my God, that's what he was talking about. So, I try to be open to listen to everyone, to pick things up from every place, because you never know where you're going to make that connection.
I want to go back to your comment about waypoints. I've talked to Lance about this as well. And Lance, you and I both know Lance very well. He's got a mind that is just incredible when it comes to this world of fishing. You said you put a waypoint in for every fish. How do you manage that? How do you use that information then? How do you keep track of it?
It is a lot of data, but yeah, every fish waypoint goes in. If I can't put it in, then I have my phone has a stylus, and I'll keep track of everything, weather, how deep I was going, direction, and everything. And so later on, that stuff I actually go into a spreadsheet. Like, I can look stuff up from years back if I really wanted to on a particular day, and tell you what the weather was, what the barometric pressure was, how deep the fish were, and everything. You don't have to be that in depth with it, but it can be a lot of data to keep track of. But if you're someone who likes that kind of stuff, it's fun at the same time, because, again, when you go back and start looking at that stuff, you put pieces of the puzzle together over time.
Ali, I know you got to get going to class. What are you doing now? What are you teaching, and who are these students you're working with?
So this is a graduate level course. We're teaching a class on emerging hazards of climate change. I'm doing some sustainability work here in the city, down at Wayne State now. Branching off just a bit, we're working on a flood project, so we're going to be going out and taking some measurements to see if some of these empty lots in the city are creating hydrological benefits in the city of Detroit in regards to flooding, whether or not they're operating as passive green infrastructure and helping with the flooding issue. So just doing something that could immediately help the people of Southeast and Lower Michigan in regards to some of this flooding stuff that's been happening in the past couple of years. But again, sticking close to my first love, which is the outdoors and fisheries and everything. So, just trying to be well-rounded, but I know where my bread is buttered and where my passion really lies.
Ali, you're a fascinating guy, and I always look forward to talking with you. I'll let you get on with your day, and I appreciate your time.
Hey, thank you so much for the opportunity, Mike. It's always a pleasure.
Pleasure's mine. Ali Shakoor. You can find him online at Ali Shakoor Fishing. Again, it's Ali Shakoor, Shakoor. Ali Shakoor Fishing on Facebook and Instagram. Ali is one of the guys, and actually John Durtka in the first hour as well. They don't use websites anymore. Pat and I were talking about this during the break. It's becoming more and more common that people are just going, hey, how do I find you online? Go to my social media outlets, right? And I get that. I still have a website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, but all my social media posts go to that website. But I'm getting off topic here. Anyway, guys like Ali are, like I said, they're fascinating to me because they look at a day on the water or a day on the wood, a day in the woods, a day in the field, and their mind is always working. A lot of times when I go in the water, I'll be honest with you, I tend to shut my brain down. I go out there to do nothing but relax. Maybe to light up a cigar, maybe, throw some flicker shads in the water, put my feet up on the angler quest, and just chill out for a while. And I catch my share of fish. But I don't look at situations like Lance Valentine, like Ali Shakoor, where they dissect the situation, where they look at the weather patterns, the water temp, the wind direction, the wind speed, and use all of these factors and all of this information to fine-tune their presentation, to fine-tune their day on the water. And that's why, what do they say? 10% of the anglers catch 90% of the fish, 90% of the fish. And I always say, if somebody is a good fisherman, they're probably a good hunter too, and vice versa. Because the people who can look at Mother Nature and combine everything that's going on and bring it into some form of action where they're dealing with all these factors, man, they can be impressive. And Ali Shakoor is one of them. Ali Shakoor Fishing on Facebook and Instagram. We'll take a break. When we come back, Amy Trotter of MUCC joins me for 2 segments. We'll wrap up this hour with her right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Port Huron, WPHM 1380 AM, twice each weekend, in fact. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Newberry, WNBY 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan tracker and angler quest headquarters. You know I love that. The folks at Linwood Beach do their best to accommodate boaters and especially anglers, walleye anglers. They're in a great spot right there on the west side of the bay. Great jumping off spot for ice fishing if there is ice in a particular winter. Or when open water season is there, man, Linwood Beach is just walleye fishing central. As it comes time to splash your boat this spring or get it ready for the water, I think Linwood Beach should be great people to deal with. Check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. A couple of activities there at the marina this summer I'll be involved in. In June, the Walleye for Warriors event. I'll be there for that. And at the end of June, the Angler Quest Owners Tournament, also based out of Linwood Beach Marina, linwoodbeachmarina.com. I want to turn our attention now to a group that I am a member of and a real supporter of, MUCC, Michigan United Conservation Clubs. I think they do a wonderful job in keeping us informed about the issues that face hunters and anglers and shooters and trappers. And a big reason for that is their executive director, Amy Trotter. Amy is a very, very busy woman. And when I get a chance to talk with her here, I always look forward to it. And she's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Amy, welcome back. How are you?
Very good. Thank you.
So listen, it's kind of a interesting time. I got to believe kind of a busy time there for you folks in Lansing at MUCC.
Yeah, it is. Maybe the lack of ice is a blessing in some ways because I wouldn't get to enjoy it anyway.
I look at a couple of situations from the outside that I see as concerning or worrisome even, but I'm not gonna direct the conversation. I want to ask you, Amy, what's on your mind? What are you looking at? What are you worried about? What are you excited about?
Wow, there's a lot that we have to look forward to. With the start of the legislature, we have some unfinished business that has, made some fits and starts over the last few sessions that I really think we have an opportunity to work on. One of those is the commercial hunting, commercial guiding for hunting and inland fishing bills that we've been talking about for a long time. The other is actually on the state licensed commercial fishing legislation that we have actually passed the House a couple of years ago, and we are looking to get reintroduced. So I'm hopeful in some aspects. Of course, I am very concerned, and, things that keep me up at night are what is to come that we will have to defend against. And right now, or at least as of yesterday, none of those bills have yet been introduced of some of our worries, but we know they're coming. And, that's particularly about gun control efforts. There may be some discussion about predator hunting and, in the form of, contests and competition at the NRC. So there's a lot to keep us worried, but also a lot to keep us excited and at the table.
Gun control. Is this a result of the governor's State of the State address?
Absolutely. I mean, they are really trying to find the areas, at least, that they can get the most votes on. Polling would say that those three issues that she laid out in her State of the State address are the things that we expect to see bills on introduced. We have not yet seen them, so I can't tell you how bad they are or, if they're not as bad as we might envision. But safe storage, red flag laws, and then the third one is universal background checks. So, again, I can't say exactly what we all mean by those because we haven't seen the bills yet, I
I think as a Michigan citizen and a gun owner, I am responsible enough to safely store guns in my home without having the government come in and tell me how to do it. Is that what it boils down to? Is that what this is going to be, you think?
You know, we've seen it there's a whole spectrum of laws out there, state by state. Everybody has it differently. I think it was North Carolina considered safe storage to be within arm's reach, you know. So there aren't terrible things out there, I guess, but they definitely may impact certainly lawful and responsible gun owners, but they also may inadvertently impact hunting. You know, my biggest fear is, I'm sitting there with a loaded firearm in a hunting blind with my child and she too is holding a loaded, firearm. Is that allowed? Because she's a minor and, is that safely stored, and we're in a box blind. So, those are the things that we'll be looking for is even the inadvertent things they didn't mean to outlaw. So we'll be looking for those. But then, also, we want to make sure that people are free to express their Second Amendment rights as well.
Hang tight, Amy. Got to take a break. Hang tight, Amy. We got to take a break. We're talking with Amy Trotter, Executive Director of MUCC, MUCC.org. Amy will be joining me next week on Wednesday Night Live, where we've got a chance to talk about a lot of topics. More after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Flint on Sports Extra 1330 WTRX. You can hear us in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. And you can hear us in Sandusky on WMIC 660 AM 95.3 FM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by my friends at Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. This week's Ask Avery segment, I'm handing over to MUCC Executive Director Amy Trotter. As long as I've got Amy here, I'm going to ask her a question. And Amy, the consent decree situation. I would be remiss if I let you go without talking about that. Your thoughts on where we're at right now?
Well, that is probably bigger than this segment allows for.
I know it.
Well, as of right now, we know that there is a proposed consent decree on the table. That became public basically just before the holidays. The MUCC is a member of the Coalition to Protect Michigan's Resources, a separate nonprofit organization made of sport fishing groups, and we are working very hard to file our objections to that proposal. Since that time, we have filed those objections in court. Now we expect to see other parties responding to various briefs, and it's really all in the court system of, filing objections and briefs back and forth to everybody else's objections. So we're kind of in this phase of a lot of trading paper and making arguments. But in the midst of all of this, just at the end of January, the Department of Natural Resources issued a frequently asked questions document about the proposed Great Lakes consent decree. And truthfully, they should have learned their lesson because frequently asked questions documents got them in trouble before. So, we are taking issue with some of their assertions that they have made in that frequently asked questions document. And, we are trying to get a word out on, really our perspective as sport fishing groups on what the troubles are with this proposed consent decree and why, to some extent that FAQ from the DNR is a little bit misleading or at least leaves some of the information out.
I feel like, and I haven't been involved in this like you have, but I feel like we as sport fishermen have kind of been left out of this whole process. And I'm disappointed that I feel like, again, from the outside, like the DNR maybe hasn't had the sports anglers best interest throughout this process?
It does seem that some of their actions would suggest that sport fishing is not the first and foremost item on the top of their mind. I don't want to, insinuate that anyone is trying to, kill the fishery or anything else like that.
Right.
But we do really feel that, some of their, again, responding to the frequently asked questions documents, they're trying to make it sound like gill nets aren't bad. And we have worked for the last 20 years to get gill nets out of the water because they are lethal and indiscriminate. And I won't say that our biologists and researchers don't use them. I mean, they are a tool in order to gain information. But when it comes to the commercial use of them, you are going to have unexpected, unintended consequences to that. And it feels like they are trying to, really, confuse people by some of the assertions they're making and what we really said about gill nets. The fact of the matter is this consent decree proposal does allow for millions more of gill net effort. So how many feet multiplied by how many days it's out there are going to be a lot more gill nets for a lot more days out there under this proposal, or at least they're authorized to use them. And we have concerns about how that's going to impact not just sport fishing, but the fishery, the sustainability of the fisheries.
Amy, I look forward to talking with you more about this issue and other topics in depth next Wednesday on Wednesday Night Live, where we'll have more time to flesh some things out. That'll be on my social media outlets Wednesday night at 7:00. I think you guys will link to that as well from the MUCC Facebook page too, won't you?
Absolutely.
All right, so I look forward to that, Amy. And before I let you go, a real quick question: why should we join MUCC? What do we as Michigan hunters and anglers? Why? What good does it do us?
As a member of MUCC, you have a voice in the policy process. You have a link to this complex web of policy and sausage making downtown within the Natural Resources Commission and representing you in these big picture legal fights as well. So not only that, but, there's ulterior motives here. Right now, between now and March 24th, our convention, if you join MUCC, you actually get entered into a sweepstakes for a Henry Big Boy 44 mag.
I didn't even know that. That's a bonus.
Good reason to join now, and let us help represent that voice downtown and at the Capitol.
Go do that by going to MUCC.org. That's MUCC.org. And a reminder, Amy Trotter will be with me Wednesday night on Wednesday Night Live to give you a chance to ask her questions directly. And thank you to Security Credit Union for making each week's Ask Avery segment possible. We'll take a break. When we come back in hour number 3, the Whitetail Whisperer, John Eberhart.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction. I do certainly appreciate it. Welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. I'm looking at this week's rundown of guests, and I didn't do this intentionally, but I think I did a pretty darn good job this week. And I look at John Durtka in the first hour, who is the guy who who spearheaded spearfishing in the state. He's a hardcore expert at underwater spearfishing. Ali Shakoor, fisheries biologist, tournament angler, and educator. Again, hardcore, top tier, top level of what he's involved in. And now this hour's guest, the Whitetail Whisperer, John Eberhart. One of the best, if not the best, whitetail hunter in Michigan, with the stats to prove it. I'm feeling pretty good about this week's show, and I'm feeling pretty good about having John Eberhart on with me in this hour. John, welcome back. How are you?
Hey, Mike, I'm doing really well. You know, you're giving away your age when your opener says 4 decades. I didn't know. I didn't realize you've been doing this for 4 decades.
4 decades, but keep this in mind, John, I'm not as old as you.
That's true, and you never will be. You got a point there, Mike.
Yeah, you opened the door. I wouldn't have gone there, but
I deserved it. 72 big ones.
And you're retired now. How's retirement treating you?
Oh, it's a struggle getting used to it. I mean, I'm staying pretty active doing YouTube videos, and I'm writing a new book. I just started this morning, actually.
Oh, really?
Yep, and I'm still writing for Deer and Deer Hunter and Woods and Water, and got workshops going on. But retiring from my main job is definitely changed timing. Let's put it that way.
Well, and you know, I've noticed that you've been very active on YouTube lately, and I thought that is what a great venue that is for a guy like you with all of this knowledge and expertise to take advantage of what is not really a new technology at this point, but certainly not a lot newer than writing a book. You're taking advantage of this venue to reach a lot of people, and you're doing a great job with it, John.
Thank you. I'm actually really enjoying that. I started that Eberhart Outdoors, 16 months ago maybe, and I've got 20,000 subscribers at this point, and tons of great feedback. I probably get 50 email questions a day on hunting from people all around the country, and it's very gratifying. Just like what you're doing, you know, you get a lot of gratification for bringing people on and teaching people things, you know. It's kind of, I'm getting a lot of hunting articles, people not paying attention to wind direction anymore, hunting out of saddles, using my techniques over the years, because I put all that stuff out on YouTube. And to have, you know, during season, I'm getting probably 10 articles with stories a day.
Wow.
Or, well, maybe not a day, but I'd say 20 to 25 a week that I've been posting on Facebook, and it's gratifying to help people become better at whatever their passion is.
I don't know if you can narrow it down. What are the most common questions people ask you about deer hunting?
Oh, by far the most common question is my scent control. Number 2 would be questions on saddle hunting. Number 3 would be just hunting in general, because I've always done, you know, public land and knock on doors for free permission only, and there's a whole lot of hunters in this country that's what they do. So I get a ton of questions on what do you do different to be successful than all the other hunters you're competing against, and I send them a lot of articles that I've written in the past, if, you know, whatever fits the agenda they're asking me a question about. But scent control is by far number 1. You know, people, that's the number 1 sense a deer has, okay, their nose. That's their number 1 defense against hunters. And I'm to the point over the last 20-some years where I pay zero attention to wind. I never worry about deer downwind of me. And hunters have a hard time grasping that, as I did when I first got into scent lock in the mid-'90s. I never, ever even thought that I would reach a point where I didn't have to pay attention to wind when I went hunting. I just thought it would give me an extra advantage. Maybe deer would think I'm farther away than I really was, and, you know, I'd get more opportunities. But I researched the technology. I did not go by what ScentLock says on their website. I totally did my own studies to learn how to deabsorb it and how to store it and how to properly use it in conjunction with other things, to the point where I don't pay attention to wind anymore. And I've got hundreds of hunters that are doing the same thing now. But it's still, when you post stuff on, you know, I don't pay attention to wind, there's 11 million deer hunters in this country, and they just have a hard time wrapping their hands around that. And but it's very gratifying to me. I get a lot of negative stuff on that, but that's okay. A lot of hunters are just lazy. A lot of hunters don't have the personal hygiene to do a scent control regimen. They just don't. And for those guys, they have to play the wind. They can try to do it. If I can almost tell by talking to somebody, by their vocabulary or looking at their vehicle, what kind of trash is in their vehicle or their general appearance, what their hygiene level is. And if you don't have a decent hygiene level where you care about how you look and you care about details, you're not going to be able to do it. But for the hunters that have done it, it's changing their hunting life, let's put it that way.
Is your scent control program dependent on and unique to ScentLock, or could you do it with any of the scent control clothing that's out there these days?
No, ScentLock and ScentBlock are the only two companies that use activated carbon because they own the U.S. patent on using activated carbon. There's nothing out there. Antimicrobials do nothing. Sprays do nothing, literally nothing. That's baking soda and water. Antimicrobials are basically a treatment that kill bacteria. And when you put an antimicrobial on an exterior garment, let's say like a Sitka, lots of people have antimicrobials. That's very, very common because it's cheap. It doesn't cost squat. But antimicrobials have to be against the skin to kill bacteria. If they're on a jacket with layers or T-shirts or base garments underneath it, it's not contacting the bacteria to kill it. It's like spraying the outside of your house for ants inside. So it's just about, I've been in this industry 30-some years. I've repped lots of clothing companies, dead downwind, tanks, lots of scent sprays, and that stuff all does very, very minimal. Even if you had an antimicrobial against your skin, it kills bacteria, but it doesn't do anything to get rid of the odor from the dead bacteria or the other 300,000+ types of gaseous and liquid molecules that you emit from your skin every second you're breathing. And activated carbon does. It absorbs everything.
I'm glad that you brought up saddle hunting because I was going to bring it up too. I find it interesting. You and I have been talking about this, or I've been asking you questions about this for many, many years. Now when I go online, all I see are saddle hunting experts. Man, there's a lot of people out there who know an awful lot about this who haven't been doing it nearly as long as you have.
There's a lot of people on YouTube that profess to know a lot about it, but when I watch it, I kind of laugh. There are some really good guys out there on YouTube that know a lot about it that have been doing it 10, 20 years. I've been doing it since 1981. As you well know, I've written 3 books prior to this one I'm writing now, which is going to be a book on saddle hunting. But I've had chapters in all of my books on saddle hunting, and there's so much stuff out there on YouTube that is not pro saddle hunting. A lot of companies are just trying to sell their products, so they don't promote all of the advantages a saddle has over a tree stand the way that they should. They don't promote the 360, moving around the tree, keeping it as a hiding buffer. Most companies that are selling platforms, they want to sell their platforms, so they promote standing on a platform, which in reality, I may piss off some saddle people on this, but in reality, if you're saddle hunting and your feet are on a platform, there's not really a lot more advantage over a platform than hunting off a platform, a hang-on tree stand. Because you can't shoot 360 degrees around the tree. If you can't move around the tree and shoot 360, you're alleviating that major advantage of a saddle by just using a platform without steps going around the backside of the tree. So you're alleviating not only the 360 shooting, you're alleviating the option of being able to move around the tree to keep the tree as a hiding buffer for non-target deer that might be in front of you. Like if you're setting up at a white oak tree or something, you're setting up with a saddle, you should set up 180 degrees on the back side of the tree where you got the tree as a 100% block of your body profile. So deer that are there, 5 or 6 deer that may be there eating for 20 minutes, they're looking around and with food in their mouth and their ears are moving around, you're totally blocked. Whereas with a tree stand, if it's a decent-sized tree, you have to be kicked off to the side where you have that shot. You can't shoot through the tree, so you have to be kicked off to the side, which makes it easier for deer to pick you as they're standing there for 10 or 15 minutes, multiple deer, heads moving around.
John, I've never known you.
When the foliage is not.
I've never known you to be too worried about making people mad. That's for sure. We're talking with John Eberhart. You can find him online at Eberhart's whitetailworkshop.com. Also, this new YouTube channel he's talking about, Eberhart Outdoors on YouTube. Check it out. Lots of videos. He uploads, I think, several a week, and they're all very, very interesting. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll talk more with John about saddle hunting, postseason scouting, whitetail hunting in general, and just what's going on in his world right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS. You can hear us in Muskegon on WKBZ 1090 AM, and you can hear us north of the bridge in Manistee on WTIQ 1490 AM, 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Bohning Archery. Bohning, a leader in the archery industry for more than 3/4 of a century. We had Scott Hamlin of Bohning on earlier in the show talking about the company, the history, and some arrow building advice as well. Check them out online at bohning.com. That's BOHNING, bohning.com. While you are online, I would encourage you to check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and then head on over to these two places, Eberhart's whitetailworkshop.com, and then go to YouTube and check out Eberhart Outdoors. You know the Eberhart name, John Eberhart, a name in the whitetail hunting world here in Michigan for so many, many years. John, how was your past season, by the way?
I was hoping you'd ask me that. I've had 2 very interesting seasons in a row. I've shot 3 book bucks the last 2 years, and all of them were rattled in. I've rattled in this past season in 2022. By the 15th of October, I had rattled in 15 bucks. It was kind of strange because for some odd reason in 2022, the 2 places I have free permission to hunt, plus several of the public land areas that I hunt, had standing corn bordering them. And so I did a ton of rattling this year. And overall, during the entire season, including when I went out of state, I rattled in 26 bucks, but I had rattled in 15 bucks in Michigan by the 15th of October, and on the 15th I shot one. So they were, this is Michigan, for God's sake. So most of the bucks are, 4 points and 6 points and little 8 points. But on the 3rd of October in the evening, I had I think 16 cameras out, all cell cameras, because I'm using cameras now that I can use cell cameras where they send the photos to my phone and I don't have to do an intrusive visit. But I had 16 cameras out, and I only had 1 shooter buck on them, and I rattled that buck in on the 3rd of October to 5 yards. I rattled him out of a cornfield. And even though he was a shooter, he was, this is in northern Michigan, he was a 120-ish buck. And I didn't shoot him. I drew on him twice, and I didn't let my arrow go, even though he was the biggest buck I had on camera in any of the spots I hunted. And then after he left, I was like, John, you're a moron. The biggest buck you had on camera, there's no other bucks here bigger to shoot. Why are you even hunting here if you're not going to shoot that deer? So, then he became my target buck after I let him go at 5 yards. And I rattled him back in out of the same cornfield, but in a different location on the cornfield on the 15th, and I took him. And then last year in 2021, both of the bucks I shot, I rattled in too. So I've had a lot of luck rattling. And one thing about hunting standing corn, most of my locations, rut phase locations, are back in the timber, back in the bedding areas and stuff. So I consider anytime you're hunting the perimeter of a bedding area or the perimeter of timber and it's butting up to standing corn, I consider those free hunts because you're not intruding into the timber. All you're doing is drawing deer out of the physical standing corn. So you're not intruding into anything that's going to ruin or compromise any of your hunts later in the season during the rut. So, anytime I have the opportunity to hunt the perimeter of a standing cornfield and rattle, I do it. Now, as soon as the corn is picked, that location is totally finished, because I never hunt field edges unless it's standing corn, ever.
I'm still fascinated by this rattling in 15 different Michigan bucks by the middle of October.
Yep. Yeah. Well, 3 of those times I rattled in bachelor groups. So 2 times a long-standing corn, I rattled in 4. One time I rattled in 4 at the same time. They were all small. One was a 2.5-year-old decent 8-point, like 100-inch 8-point. Another time I rattled in 3, and then on another hunt back in a physical bedding area that I did not plan on hunting during the rut, I went back there for an all-day sit, and I rattled in a bachelor group of 4 bucks as well. And there was also a decent 90-inch 8-point 2-year-old buck in that group too. So on 3 of the rattle sequences, I rattled in 11 bucks.
Wow.
Other sequences, I got rattled in 4 singles.
Are you rattling aggressively like we see on the TV shows?
No, I never do that in Michigan. That just spooks deer here. I do sparring sequences where I'll do a noise sequence. I'll do an initial clash of my bag to get something's attention from a distance, and then I'll just kind of wiggle them around in the bag, making some noise. And usually when I'm rattling, it's relatively quiet, because I'm doing it early in the morning or late in the evening when the winds have usually died, so the noise carries. But I'll do 5 to 10 seconds of rattling, I call it sparring sequences, and then I'll have about the same amount of time, a quiet time, and then another sparring sequence, and then more quiet, and then maybe a third sparring sequence at the end. And bucks, during that mid-October time frame, usually the first, second, or third day of October in Michigan, I'm hunting food locations because everything's bedding to feeding. So I'm hunting them on the merits I chose them for. But then during that time after that, most of the mature bucks that I want to kill or shoot possibly are going to be nocturnal. There's so much hunting pressure in Michigan, they've turned nocturnal. Yet they will still come out of a standing cornfield to its edge if the timber side of the corn has some semblance of security cover butting up to the corn as well. They're not being vulnerable stepping out of the corn into an open area. They're still stepping in usually a very short 3 to 5 yard gap with security cover on both sides.
Yeah.
So they've got a quick exit if they need to.
Man, you're making me look at standing corn completely differently than I have been.
I love standing corn. Most people hate standing corn because the deer are bedding in the standing corn, and they have no way of getting them. But if you become proactive and do these rattle sequences, you're maybe 1 out of 6 times will work, but you will have some success. I actually posted something on YouTube, on my YouTube channel prior to season, and I've had several guys send me pictures of deer they shot rattling that they'd never tried before. But I had a guy from Kalamazoo send me a picture of a 152-inch, I think it was a 10 or a 12 point. He said, I've never rattled in my life. And I just had this, watch your video and did a sequence. And man, oh man, he said, as soon as I put my rattle, I don't remember if he used a bag or antlers. He said, I no sooner put them away, and I could hear this deer charging at me through the corn, because you can hear him coming through the corn a long ways away. Wow. And he said he got out to the edge of that corn. He was like 8 yards away, the guy said. And then he stopped and he starts looking around, because they got like GPSs in their head. They can pinpoint a noise. If it's a noise that it's happening for several seconds, they can pinpoint it almost to the spot, which is really impressive to me. But he shot that 152, biggest deer he's ever shot in his life, biggest deer he ever saw in his life.
Man.
It was pretty cool.
Saddle hunting, scent control, and now rattling. John, you pretty much got things covered.
Well, I've rattled for years. I've rattled and shot lots of bucks. But the last 2 years, because there's been so much standing corn where I'm hunting, it's just worked very, very well for me. Now, next year, I'm expecting everything to be in beans. So the rattling thing probably won't work unless I'm in a bedding area, in a spot where I don't plan on hunting during the rut.
Mm-hmm. What about postseason scouting? Are you done with that now?
Oh, no, I haven't even started.
Oh, really? I thought
Nope.
you started right after the first of the year.
No, not when there's snow on the ground. Because any sign you see left in the snow is meaningless. Because once deer season's over, all deer, they will move closer to the preferred feeding area in the zone, and they'll bed because there's no pressure on them anymore. There's no gunshots and any of that stuff. So the sign you see in the snow and runways in the snow and beds in the snow are relatively meaningless for next fall's deer movements. So I don't scout until the snow melts, which typically, depends on the year. But the last few years, usually by early March, it's pretty much gone. And then, I usually stop that preseason scouting once it starts greening up, which is usually, late April, early May, depending on the weather that year. And then I prep my locations. I always make notes what I want to do, and then I prep my locations once all my scouting is done for the area.
So then when do you set your cell cams?
This last year, I started setting cell cams around late August, early September.
Okay.
And those things are unbelievably awesome. And I always put them up high. I never put them at eye level. I carry a stick with two-step aiders on it. So I'll put them up about 14 feet off the ground, pointing them to the destination or where there's a convergence of runways, the sign that I want to look at.
Why?
Good. Oh, if you put it in Michigan, because Michigan's such a pressured state, if you put a camera at eye level, you'll get pictures of, does especially. They'll come up and, you can see their eye. It's right next to the camera.
Yep.
And big bucks will come in, and they may see a camera like that one time with, let's say, a black strap going around a tree. They can pick that up. That a black strap going around a gray tree is not normal. And then they see a camera, and that device is not supposed to be there. And it's very common in a heavily pressured area for a mature buck to see it and get a picture of him one time and never again. On pressured land, not on managed places with food plots and stuff. And I'm talking day and nighttime pictures, either one. And I've had deer, even in Kansas, believe it or not. I had a camera on a tree years ago, probably when it was prior to cell cameras. I put out a regular SD card camera, and I had it about 40 yards from my tree on a runway leading to the location I was set up at, and it had a black strap on it. And here comes this buck, it's probably a 160-incher, coming down this runway, coming right towards my tree. I would have definitely got a shot had that camera not been there. He saw that camera, and this is Kansas. I mean, these deer are relatively dumb compared to here. He saw that camera on that tree and that black strap, and he stopped, and he looked at that for maybe 4 or 5 seconds, and just as casually as you could ask, he just turned around and went back the other direction.
Wow. John, it is always a pleasure to talk with you. Always so interesting. I appreciate your time. I'll send people to Eberhart's WhiteTailWorkshop.com or the new YouTube channel, Eberhart Outdoors. John, keep up the good work, and let's talk again soon.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it very much. The Whitetail Whisperer, John Eberhart himself, right here on Outdoor Magazine. I love having the opportunity to talk with people like John who are so knowledgeable, so intense, so good at what they do, and the fact they're willing to share that information with us here on the show. I do appreciate it. We'll take a break. A few more things I want to talk about, then we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show on more than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan, including WILS in Lansing, that's 1320 AM, WMLQ in Manistee, 97.7 FM, and in Saginaw, 2 stations, WSGW 790 AM and 100.5 FM. I'm in the studios of SGW right now. I'm here with Pat Johnston. I'm actually in his studio. He graciously allows me to sit here for about 3.5, 4 hours every week. Pat, I do certainly appreciate it. Couldn't do the show without Pat and Charlie Root, of course, as well. It's it's an interesting situation in that back when I was in television, it took a whole bunch of people to do a TV show. Here in radio, the numbers are pared down. It only takes a few of us, but the guys who are working with me have a very critical job, and Pat, I do appreciate it, and you do a great job every week, and it does not go unnoticed. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Michigan-based Whack-'em and Plack-'em, a very cool and unique way to show off your trophies. Use them with shoulder mounts, European mounts, even fish. For details, check out the website, nontypicalinnovations.com. That's nontypicalinnovations.com. I had the chance to meet with Jason and see his products in person at an event at a church a couple of weeks ago. Very cool products, very cool guy, family-owned, Michigan-based, does not get any better. The website, nontypicalinnovations.com. Oh, let me run through my list here. The days are getting longer, right? We're seeing that. The days are certainly getting longer. And today, as I'm in the studio, I've had 2 different reports of people seeing dead skunks in the road. In fact, one of them was a buddy of mine who hit a skunk. So you know what that means. Springtime is not far behind, regardless of apparently what the groundhogs saw. Not good news for ice fishing season, though, right? If you love snow and love ice, at least downstate. Now, I'm sure in the UP, you're listening to me going, Avery, don't worry about it. We got snow and we got ice for weeks and weeks to come. Not so much downstate. It is good news for folks who like to do looking for shed whitetail antlers. With the snow leaving, a little bit easier to find them. River fishing's pretty good, steelhead and walleye as well. I personally am looking forward to turkey hunting coming up and a springtime Ontario bear hunt as well. What else? Oh, Wednesday Night Live. This Wednesday coming up, MUCC Executive Director Amy Trotter, who was with me earlier on the radio show. You got to hear Amy there. She will be with me on Wednesday Night Live when we can spend a good amount of time without commercial breaks and without the time constraints of the broadcast radio show. And the exciting thing about this, I think, on Wednesday Night Live, you have the opportunity to join us and post your questions directly to Amy. Here on the radio show, you had to listen to me ask her questions. During Wednesday Night Live, she'll be with me, and you can post questions directly to Amy Trotter, MUCC Executive Director. How do you join us on Wednesday Night Live? I do it every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. It's on my Facebook page. It's on my YouTube channel. It's on my Twitter feed, and it's on LinkedIn as well. I'm experimenting, trying to figure out how to get it over on Instagram as well. And maybe this one with Amy will be another experiment to do that. But that's Wednesday Night Live, 7 o'clock on Wednesday nights, MUCC Executive Director Amy Trotter. We still have openings for our Ohio bow hunt with Bill Piles of Ohio Bow Hunting Outfitters. He was with me last week on Wednesday Night Live. And you might say, well, listen, that hunt's not coming up until October. I got plenty of time. Not really. If you want to join us, and we do have a couple more openings, we need to lock this in soon so Bill can make plans for the fall. It's a pretty inexpensive hunt. You do need 50% down now. If they're interested at all, I can send you details. Send me an email to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. We will be auctioning off one of these bow hunts with Bill Piles during our big Trinity Monitor Wild Game Dinner and Auction. That's coming up Saturday, March 4th at the Great Hall in Midland. Very few tickets left. Maybe by the time you hear this show, none at all. Go to my Facebook page for details. Go to the Facebook page for details. What else? Oh, the Rompola buck. It just won't go away, will it? 25 plus years ago now, when Mitch Rompola allegedly shot a world record buck. He never got it certified, never got it x-rayed. The controversy continues now because, why? I don't know. Maybe because I don't think we'll ever know what really happened, but it's in the news lately because some people who were peripherally involved in that event have come out and said they don't think it's legit. I go back and forth. For a long, long time now, I've said I believe if anybody's going to do it, it was Mitch. And I still think that's the case, although I was listening to a podcast, Deer Hunter podcast, with Kevin Vistison, where he had a taxidermist on there. And after I heard that version of Kevin's podcast, I did start to wonder. It did cast some doubt in my mind. Mitch, if you're listening, you got an open invitation to be on this show anytime. Let's talk about it. Or come on the show and we'll talk. We won't even talk about that, although I think that would disappoint a lot of people. My name is Mike Avery. My website is MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address is Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Don't hesitate to reach out to me with questions, comments, criticisms, suggestions. Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. Man, Pat, this show has just flown, hasn't it? Yeah, you were reading my mind, weren't you? It's like, man, where did this 3 hours go? And maybe you could say I saved the best for last with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner, good friend of mine, a guy I've worked with for a long, long time, newly retired wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner, but we're not going to let him rest too much because pretty soon he's going to be catering our big Trinity Monitor wild game dinner and auction. But in the meantime, he joins us each week here and helps us wrap up each week's Outdoor Magazine show. David, welcome back. How you doing, buddy?
Very good, Michael. Hey, is your event a sold-out event already?
We've, as we are recording this show, we've got just a very, very few tickets. It might be sold out by this weekend, but one thing's clear. It's going to sell out, and it's going to be a big success. I am absolutely convinced of it.
Wow, that sounds so cool. I'm so looking forward to this. It's number one on my list of stuff to get ready to do.
Oh, wonderful. Let me ask you, Dave, do you, you spent so many years every day in the kitchen. Do you miss that right now, or is retirement still so new that you don't quite know what's going on?
Well, I miss it dearly. It's because at night you sit there and you watch TV, and I used to be cooking and making, different kind of foods, gluten-free, and, tailoring food to different people. And now you sit there and watch TV, and I don't know.
Well, listen, soon it's going to be springtime. The Angler Quest is going to be on the water, and you won't have to be bored at all. You can just give me a call, say, Avery, let's go fishing, and we'll do it.
I would love that, boy. I got a nice rabbit recipe right now.
Oh, yeah, let's hear it.
It's kind of a Polish or a Slavic sort of a recipe. My grandma used to make this, if I remember correctly, how she did it. So we'd give her a couple of rabbits, and she'd cut them up in 8 or 10 pieces. And need about a cup of raisins. European people put raisins in a lot of different dishes. Some countries even put raisins in stuffed cabbage. So anyway, you need about a half a cup of walnut pieces, a nice big medium onion diced up fine, a couple stalks of celery diced up fine, about a half to 3/4 of a teaspoon of basil. If you got fresh basil, so much the better. About a half to 3/4 of a cup of red wine, and whatever you're going to be drinking with this meal, by all means use it. White pepper to your taste, some of that Better Than Bouillon base, beef base, I would say, flour, olive oil, cornstarch, and some water. So you're going to dredge the pieces and make sure you get all of the shot cleaned out of the rabbit, and if you're using a shotgun, make sure you get any hair driven into the meat, get that all taken. Dredge it in flour, brown it on both sides, and place it in a nice large oven-proof casserole in the same pan. You can saute the onions and in the celery, and if you like a little garlic in this, by all means, throw a couple pieces of garlic in there, diced up fine. Slowly, just saute it a little gently, don't brown. When it's done, deglaze the bottom of the pan with that wine, and then stir it all the while you're doing this, while you bring it back up to a boil. Add that to the meat and the vegetables. And then you can add your spices at this a little bit, and then add your water, enough to cover the rabbit. And then you're going to use some cornstarch to thicken this up after it comes to a nice boil. I would make sure you taste it at this point. If you need a little more pepper or maybe some more bouillon to bring up that flavor. And then thicken it up just about as much as you like. And at this point, add the raisins and the nuts to the rabbit. And then you're going to mix that up real good and then bake it uncovered, because you want to kind of reduce this down and the flavor down for at least an hour, hour and a half, depending on the age of the rabbits that you're going to be using. And then if it's not done after an hour and a half and it's not falling away from the bones real easy, then check it about every 10 or 15 minutes after that. And this would go great with some buttered noodles or a fluffy white rice or even biscuits if you like. And man, we used to love this when we were kids growing up, and Grandma would cook this for us.
Raisins. I haven't seen you use raisins in many dishes at all.
Well, it's kind of a European way. French people do it, and like I said, Polish people and Slavic folks, they use raisins in a lot of different dishes that you wouldn't even imagine, like stuffed cabbage. I've had Polish people that make stuffed cabbage, and I've been to their house, and I thought, man, it's got raisins in it. But you know what? It's a little sweet, but it really added to it.
Well, yeah, they haven't been doing that for generations for no reason, right? There's a reason they do it.
Right. It's to their flavor,
Hey, you know what I found the other day? I found a copy of the big Dixie Dave Wild Game Cookbook. Man, how many recipes did you have in that thing? It's got to be over 100.
200.
200. Well, listen, if we keep doing this long enough...
Where to find that?
I was in my office. If we keep doing this long enough, we can get through all 200 of them, Dave.
I hope so.
All right, Wild Game Chef Extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show, as are you. Because if you weren't listening, there'd be no reason to do this show. And I'm not ready to retire yet. I'm not even close to being ready for that yet. My name is Mike Avery, the website MikeAveryOutdoors.com, the email address Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Don't forget about Wednesday Night Live, 7 o'clock Wednesday with Amy Trotter of MUCC. Again, Mike Avery here, and I'll talk to you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.